Musselman is still not happy as the Arkansas Razorbacks improved to 3-0 on the young season by beating the Old Dominion Monarchs by a score of 86-77. This is Arkansas Basketball Recap. I'm Dana Price. That's Jacob Price. Well, it's 3-0. Tell you what, it's a weird situation to be in where you're so early, so often, I think since we started doing this early in the season, you have concerns about the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Zero concerns about the offense. I mean, like we go in, shoot 50% every game. We don't turn the ball over. We had 4 turnovers the entire game. Us said that was, he didn't know if he'd ever coached a game where a team only had 4 turnovers. We can shoot the 3. We can get to the rim. But it seems that the defense is behind the offense right now. And Bus is saying once again, not physical enough. And obviously he was irate about the way that we defended the 3 and irate about the way that we played transition defense. And our transition defense was horrific.
Yeah, we literally there was several times where, and this is rare, where you see the guy and you're like, oh, they don't see that guy, like everyone's back is turned, like 3 different players' backs that are in the right position, or at least on the right side of the floor, but their backs are all turned or their heads are all turned. And they're like, where does anybody know where the ball is right now? Because it's layup.
That's also like the most amount of blow bys I've seen an Eric and Musselman team have. I know that Tremont Mark was in foul trouble when he wasn't on the floor some, but
apparently that point guard was.
Oh no, they're fast.
Really
they were fast and everything, but you're still just like, whoa, man. Where's the bump, man? You know, like when your guy goes to drive and you give him that bump that doesn't quite get called a foul. I think that's the stuff he's looking for. The encouraging thing is that I think that if you had to pick one or the other, we've got to figure out how to play offense, or we've got to tighten up this defense. If you're talking about early in the season, I'd rather it be this way because I think it's easier for a coach to get the defense fixed than to all of a sudden make a guy be a great shooter or a great scorer. Like it's a harder thing to fix.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Musselman, his concerns are the right concerns because he's smarter than I am. I felt like watching that game was weird to me. I don't know what you think. We haven't talked about it, but I know that team hit a lot of shots that they don't typically hit.
Yeah, I mean, they hit a lot of tough shots.
It wasn't even necessarily bad defense. It was like, this team's not a high percentage 3-point shooting team, and they've got a couple of quick point guards.
Mm-hmm.
The right thing to do is to not overplay the 3. Then they started making them, and then they couldn't miss them. And then they were making hard ones, deep ones.
They made tough mid-range shots. And
I'm sure he told them to go under those screens.
Yes.
There was, because like I said, this team doesn't usually shoot like that. And they were going under the screens and not like really giving them tons of room, but they were finding the soft spot on a pick. And then Devo would get around it as good as anyone possibly could and still be diving out. But then they just started to go down.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they still didn't, it's not like they scored, 100 points.
No.
So, but this game had all the earmarks to me of that weird game that you lose and you can't even hardly figure out how you lost it. And it was, those guys got confident. They started to make they started to make weird push shots. They dribble off their knees, catch the ball and throw it up and it would go in. And I'm not saying it was lucky. I think that they did get in a flow, and that was partially due to some scrambled defense, and honestly, I felt like offensively too, even though that wasn't our problem, our guys this was the clunkiest game so far.
Old Dominion did dictate the tempo of the game. They didn't want to go up and down. I mean, there was times where they got in transition and stuff, but Old Dominion won the battle of what style we're going to play. And when you do that, those are games that you sometimes lose. I mean, our defensive rebounding has to be better. You can't get out rebounded by that team. I mean, they won the rebounding battle, and that shouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they won it because of the very thing that is complaining about is they were more physical. I mean, I've never seen some dudes like get some just like great rebound and just like go up and like dunk it and stuff. You're like, where are dudes at? Can we like put a body? And dude, can we? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I said it last episode. I'll say this. Can we stop pretending like Mekhi Mitchell's not the starting center?
Yeah.
Can we stop? Like, dude, how much better were we when he was in the game? 15 points, 10 rebounds. Like, come on, man.
And again, it's everywhere. It's he always knows what should be going on with the ball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And where people should be. And as good as Brazil is, Brazil doesn't have as instinctive of a mind for the game in general. You can tell when he catches the ball or when he's cutting or when he's setting screen, he's having to still like think, okay, where's my next position? Where do I need to go? What's the most advantageous place for me to roll or screen or pass? Whereas it's just more intuitive for Mitchell, you know what I mean? And I think some of the rebounding, I mean, some of that is also maybe it's youth, or some of these guys just need to have that. They're not certain guys. I mean, we know these guys that we play with, like the ball goes up and you just box out whatever body's next to you. Boxing out is like an instinct. You know what I mean? Other guys, it's not. And it really does have to be, just gone over and over and routinized into your experience. And it's not natural. You have to tell yourself to do it each time. And there was several of those, including, I mean, the very first play was a good example of and this was actually indicative of how the entire game went, in my opinion. This is what I'm talking about. This felt a lot of times like a game that you might accidentally lose and not be able to know how. But that first game, or that first possession, 2 blocks, good blocks. And then the ball somehow fumbles out to the 3-point line. Guy has to chuck it up. And you can go back and watch it. All of our guys go, oh, they're not going to make that, are they? And like, that guy that gets that putback dunk, like just skies in there, comes down and dunks that putback. He had to go walked right past 2 players.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And one of them was Brazil. I'm not sure who the other one was up top, but might have been Devo actually. But at any rate, like, yeah, that stuff they've definitely got to work on better. Although, and I don't know how much, if you can credit or discredit any of this to anybody. It just felt like one of those games. But I've never seen a game where there were more timely things happened for that team to throw sand on a tiny little bit of momentum that you were trying to build on.
Yeah.
It happened like 20 times where we'd be up by 4 or 6 and Devo got a steal, goes around his back, does it through the Euro step through the lane, makes a hard layup, crowds on their feet. It's like immediately down on the other end, they hit a 3-pointer, or they get a putback dunk or something like that. And Brazil would get a dunk. Right immediately on the other end, they'd get a weird, like someone getting turned around, accidentally fouling and one. You know what I mean? Like they did that literally the whole game. I couldn't believe it. Like every time it looked like we were going to get momentum, we'd have a guy get his 4th foul, or they'd get an and one, or they'd hit another 3.
I think in a lot of ways, no, you feel good about escaping a game like that with a 9-point win.
Yeah.
If that feels good. And the reason you do that is because the offense is working. So like you're able to match a lot of stuff. You might lose a game like that if you haven't figured it out on offense yet, if you're not able to match all that stuff. There's a couple other things that hurt you. Battle getting in foul trouble immediately hurt you. I mean, he didn't really get to play the first half. That hurt. Mark was in foul trouble. That hurt.
Mark played like terrible the first 15 minutes of the game. Like, I mean, like they weren't all bad shots, but some of them were really bad shots actually. But the ones that weren't bad shots, he just was bricking everything. He wasn't even really, you could tell he was just out of sorts. He was not in the flow. And thank God Devo and Mitchell saved that first half. And like I said, the whole thing was a struggle. The whole game was a struggle.
This was Devo's best game by a long shot.
Yeah, I think Ellis was the most consistent, even though in the first 10 minutes, they all looked out of sorts the first 10 minutes. Like there was a lot of I can't believe that was all the turnovers they had, because it felt like
Yeah.
it felt like we were just a mess. You know what I mean? Like the passing was weird. We got in weird shooting positions. We were taking weird shots. The whole thing was out of rhythm, and it felt like it was one guy would get in a little bit of a rhythm, and that was, and like I said, this is the great thing about this team potentially is you looks like you have so many guys that can get hot and can score from a lot of different areas that it's not, I mean, it is going to happen. We are going to have a game where everybody plays bad and you lose, but it's enough that like if Battle is in foul trouble or having a bad game, or if Devo, you know, like I said, we were talking about the last couple of games, Devo doesn't look like he has to do anything. Well, thank God he did do something in the first half, because otherwise that we probably have been in a deficit. Although we did have a, you know, 10-point lead most of the first half, or a good part of it. But now I will say, I mean, that second half, when they kept getting those little like bursts and getting within 4 and 5 points, and we could not get that lead extended. I mean, as it got below 10 minutes, I was terrified. I'm like, this is the kind of game where now you've fooled around, and if these guys hit a couple of threes, get a lead, you will absolutely start to see us panic, like, or potentially could see us start to grip, and all of our shots will become desperation shots. But ultimately, though, will say probably a great game for that team.
Yeah.
Because even though as a coach, you look at it and you go, I think you play that team 10 times. I think you beat them 9 times, and you probably beat them pretty better than that. Like, I think that was one of their better games they threw at you.
Yeah.
I don't think that's not a team that I actually do think is going to be spectacular. I think they had a really good game. We had a, you know, bad game, some due to probably them, some just due to, you know, sometimes you get your whole team gets snake bit and you can't get out of your own way, which it seemed like you said, with things like Battle getting stupid fouls and stuff, that seemed like, and like I said, it wasn't just that he got a foul. It was one of those things where he hits a 3 and it's like, yeah, okay. Like he hits a hard 3 and immediately he gets his 3rd foul. You know what I mean? So, ultimately, though, that kind of a game where there was pressure and they did feel concern, and you could tell there was tension in the crowd because they were like, oh, are we going to lose this? And having different guys have to step up, probably ultimately a lot more productive than if you do just go in there and beat that team by 25.
Oh, for sure. There's way more stuff for us to pull from them for them to work on, and there's way more. It's a, you know, that you can fend off a team that's coming for you, that's playing with nothing to lose.
Even things that you can't necessarily teach, just getting guys. And like, I felt like that was probably, not that he needs it because he's experienced anyway, but Mark, you know, having a bad game, bad shooting, didn't defend that well, like just having a frustrating game. And then, I mean,
he made some big buckets.
He didn't score that much, but the buckets that he got came at really important times. And it was, if you watch the game, like I said, he had a couple of steals and a couple of assists and just did a lot of good things in this brief 10-minute window that kept them from getting any closer. And that was when they were getting a lot of confidence. And he had a moment where he was the man for that 10 minutes. And if, like I said, if you watch it, it was like, thank goodness we needed several different versions. It was Mitchell for a little bit. It was Davis for a little bit. It was much more, seemed like individual guys got in the rhythm, but as a team, they never could quite find it.
Except for when Devo tip passes for the dunk. For the dunk.
That was another one of those ones where I think right after that, they went down and got a and one.
You know this about Devo? So this is an interesting stat. So we've now played 3 official games. Devo has 0 turnovers. 0. Like, which is like a thing that Devo is a guy that does some things and turns the ball over sometimes. Everyone 0 turnovers.
He's definitely having to handle the ball less too. That's probably part of it, you know.
Yeah, but it's still like that's, dude, like a guy that's on the plays as many minutes as that to have 0 turnovers and 3. That's hard.
Yeah,
I mean that's tough, especially if you're going to try to be doing like tip passes and stuff that could get picked off, or you're off a little bit and it goes out of bounds. So that's an interesting stat from Devo, being with 0 turnovers. I thought Ellis played really well.
He was consistently just getting those drive layups.
I mean I mean, Ellis led us in scoring. He had 17 points, 8 assists. I mean, that's good point guard play. Also, so had 0 turnovers.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah, who had? I mean, nobody. I mean,
but we only had 4 turnovers.
Did they all come from big men trying to dribble 17 feet out?
Brazil had 2 turnovers. Lawson had 1, and Battle had 1. That's it. Lawson had that one early. He played 6 minutes. That was the end of that. I don't know I don't know. I'm sure Muss knows what is going on.
Well, he's trying to get him. I think you're right with the last analysis, which is, I think, he knows what he has in Mitchell, and he's trying to give him give him some minutes. And
I mean, but dude, when we go and play Duke, I need to see Makai on the floor at the beginning. Come on.
That'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, or just even in this tournament we're heading into, Battle of Atlantis. Like, dude, can we have Makai be the starting center, or can we do that? Because here's the thing: I know you want that physicality, and Muss even said in the press conference, he's like, no one was physical except Makai. Nobody rebounded except Makai, and I'm like, yeah, bro, yeah. Like, so maybe he could set the tone a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, those other guys, it is funny because there might be something to the fact.
I think you've got the starting lineup figured out. It's Ellis, Devo, Mark, Brazil, and Makai. And the battle's great off the bench. And bring in Chandler Lawson off the bench. Makai can't play the whole game. Of course. Yeah, for sure. But yeah,
there might be something. Someone needs to do a study on this, because I'm just thinking about the guys that I personally know that everybody knows is a great rebounder. They're like, oh, well, watch him, you got to box him out. None of them are that athletic.
Right.
And I wonder if, not that Makai's not athletic, but compared to Brazil and those other guys,
Boston, yeah.
I wonder if guys that can rebound just through pure athleticism just don't have to, they don't get used to from a young age. Like, the only way for me to get rebounds is to make sure I'm completely in front of everybody, because I can't out jump anyone.
Yeah.
And most of the guys I know that are great rebounders that box out really well are relatively, as things go, not the best athletes, the jumpers. They're usually strong bases, and they just know they have good. I mean, I guess even you'd say Dennis Rodman. It's weird that Dennis Rodman was such a good rebounder, because his body isn't that much different than any college basketball player's body.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good body, but
were you surprised at all that Jalen Graham gets 6 minutes? That's it. Yeah, so Jalen Graham only gets 6. Lawson only gets 6. Makai ends up playing 29 minutes. I mean, Makai played, 3/4 of that game. Davenport actually gets more minutes than Lawson, or he gets more minutes than Lawson and Graham combined. So Davenport ends up with 13 minutes. They each got 6. Blocker, he was in there for 2 minutes. That kind of, it seems like he does have some rotation stuff coming together, and I don't know if Lawson and Graham or if that's going to end up being he ends up going with one or the other, and that's what he's trying to figure out. I don't know. Davenport, maybe he's going to have a role. I mean, Muss does play 10 guys. I don't suspect that that'll always be that way. I think one of those 2 guys will end up falling out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I'd have to go back and watch Graham's minutes. I didn't feel like he did anything too bad.
No.
But I'd have to go, and that is kind of interesting that he didn't play any more than that. I wonder if that's just because of how necessary Makai was, or
he played for 6 minutes. He was 1 of 3, 0 rebounds, 0 assists. I mean, it's only 6 minutes, so it's whatever.
I wonder if I went back and watched it, if you'd see him doing anything, if that's just like.
I think it's probably the physicality. He just knew that I mean, dude. I mean, I watched the game. You needed Mitchell on the floor for all those 29 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting.
Yeah, I had to go back and watch that and see if he did anything, like if he wasn't boxing out, or if he had some some of the subtle fundamental things that didn't go well, or if it was just we got to get Makai in there as much as possible, which may be the case.
I mean, so you do have this. So offensively, breakdown is field goal percentage. We shoot 30 of 59, so that's almost 51%. I mean, you'll take that every day. Anytime you're going to shoot that well. 3-point line, we were 8 of 19, 42%. That's great for the team. Free throws, we gotta shoot free throws better. We were 18 of 29, so 62%. That's not gonna work.
If we shot 82%,
if we'd have shot 80% like they did, except for the fact this is one thing that we didn't do, and must have bring this up. They were 4 of 5. And I swear that most of those were and ones.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I mean, like
they had at least 2 and
they did not go. Remember. We didn't put them at the line that much. And is that because you're playing non-fouling defense, or is it because you're not playing physical? Like, does this go? I know must have he does emphasize, hey, we need to play good defense without fouling. You might not be playing physical enough defense if the other team shoots 5 free throws, because it wasn't like they weren't driving.
Yeah, well, it wasn't like they weren't scoring.
Yeah, like it seems like you might want to put them in the line a little more than that. Like a couple of those layups, like maybe make him earn that a little bit more. Like there is something about that. Like that's not very many fouls, and that would tell me that like it's not quite physical enough.
Yeah, and I do think some of that is probably, unfortunately, sometimes the difference between, getting that rebound or that loose ball is so small when people are, both really good ball players. And the difference between, when you feel those games, because it was like this when we played Purdue, and it'll be like this when we're playing Duke, and it'll be like this when we're playing Kentucky, where every time the ball goes up, you're like holding your breath when the other team shoots. And if they miss, you're like, please get that rebound. Because every time you get a possession where they don't score, it's a relief, because you're like, everyone matters, every stop matters. And it's always such a bummer when that ball gets tapped around, they get it, and they get a second chance. And it did feel like a little bit, maybe we were just going like, didn't feel like we had as much, desperation to get the ball, because their shooting percentage was bad the first half.
Yeah.
And like I said, if they're not scoring from the free throw line and they're not shooting a high percentage,
well,
how are they in the game?
Defensive, it's defensive rebounding on our part. They got a lot of offensive rebounds. I have to look, but let's see, if I look at, so
it felt like it got better in the second half for them.
Well, dude,
because they started to miss.
This is how you know. We took 59 shots. Now, of course, we made 50% of our shots, so that's part of it. But they made 43% of their shots, but they also took 71 shots. So yeah, they took 12 more shots than we did, and the reason they took 12 more shots than we did is because we didn't secure rebounds.
I'll bet the bulk of those were in the first half too. I mean, because they didn't have as many, they just didn't miss as much in the second half. They missed a lot. They did not look. That team looked very pedestrian for the first 12 minutes. Like I was like, I didn't feel nervous the first time. I'm like, man, we're playing terrible, and this team doesn't look that good. They can't hit anything, and then all of
a sudden you're like, oh, we can't stay in front of anyone.
Well, the second half, I was terrified. I was like, oh no, these guys they're starting to feel themselves, and now these guys, like that guy's starting to look like John Morant, or not John.
That guy does look like John Morant.
Yeah, John Morant.
That did happen.
I mean, he looked so much like him. It was crazy. Like it looked like it was a costume. Like he was going to a Halloween party dressed as John Morant. I mean, he had the mustache, the hair, the blue uniform. Like it looked like we were playing the Grizzlies.
And he was blowing by people and getting and-1s at the rim.
And then all those guys, they all started to feel themselves. They were all shooting well in the second half. But yeah, I mean, I feel like some of those guys, they just weren't diving after the ball or really attacking those rebounds and those loose balls, because like I said, I mean, I think we did. I mean, it's hard not to have the feeling of when we beat Purdue, we won it by 20. This is our place. This team's already lost a game to an inferior team. Like, they're not going to come here and win. But I mean, like I said,
you can't do that. Like Must says, like in the age of the transfer portal and stuff too. Like all these teams got guys, dude. There's like all these teams got guys that used to play somewhere else. They did guys that were recruited to go play at, USC, or were recruited to go play at Wisconsin, and then they transferred out because they weren't getting minutes. And like there's guys on teams, and if you mess around.
And experience, dude. I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum, but the difference between, I don't care how spectacularly talented you are, the difference between an 18-year-old and a 22, 23-year-old is humongous in intelligence, as far as just like experience and intuitive sense of basketball, and the
Strength.
bodies, dude. The bodies. I mean, you've done like you can do a lot of things to an 18-year-old kid that is super good basketball player just because of how much you outweigh him and how much stronger you are than him. And yeah, you hear about, I mean, even the guy on our team that they said he played like if he plays this season out, he'll have played 130 games or something like
college,
that.
battle, yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. No, it's wild. So who's your player of the game? I think it's kind of tough. I think you got like a three options, and you could take any one of them. I think
it's probably Ellis or Mitchell. I mean,
it's Ellis, Mitchell, or Devo, right?
Yeah, well, and like I said, Devo was huge, but I don't think he was as big as Mitchell from just the grounding standpoint. And like I said, it's hard to take it away. Ellis was the point guard. He didn't have any turnovers. He had a lot of assists, and he did consistently score. Devo had that 10-minute spurt in the first half
when he's like, "Oh, no one's going to do this. I better just do this." Yeah,
and but I think Devo did,
and Ellis does have the 8 assists. I mean, when you have 17 and 8, so he wasn't only scoring, but he was also facilitating for the other scoring.
Yeah, and Devo in this did have a few things that he did that were, and maybe Ellis did too, but I just remember distinctly Devo having a couple where you're like, that was not a good shot. You know what I mean? And mostly in the second half, where it was like, it wasn't that like it would be a bad shot if you were not in a close game. Like if it's like, oh, you're feeling yourself, go ahead and shoot that, you know.
Yeah.
But like there was a couple of times where it was like, we need to get a dunk right now, because there's 12 minutes to go and they just scored to close it, to bring it to 5. We need to score really bad, not a fadeaway 3-pointer from the side. You know what I mean? So,
well, I'm willing to give it to Ellis. As we know, this is a very coveted award after every game. So it's much debate.
Mackay's gonna definitely be depressed for a few days when he hears that.
Yeah, you were right there though, Mackay, right there. I don't think we win that game maybe without you. I'll say that. But yeah.
I do think that you could say that. You could say if Ellis, tore his ACL in the first minute of that game, I think you could get somebody in there that could make up some of his production. Whereas I don't know what you do if Mitchell's not in there. It feels like we would have been in trouble.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Well, Friday, UNC Greensboro. I don't know if Musk is just talking. Actually, UNC Greensboro plays Vanderbilt tonight. Might try to watch that and see what that looks like. So they play Vanderbilt tonight. They are 1-0. This is only their second game. Musk made it sound like the team that this team is no joke that's coming in here. He's like, I mean, basically said we got to play a lot better than that because this team is coming in here on Friday a lot better than that. So
is Vanderbilt any good?
Vanderbilt is Vanderbilt, man. They're gonna beat a bunch of teams that they shouldn't and lose. They're gonna probably do what they do, but they it's an SEC team, and so I'm gonna try to, if I get a chance, I'm gonna try to watch them play Vanderbilt and see what that looks like.
Yeah, that's I'll definitely watch that. I'll look for something to watch tonight, and that'll be good to see. I'm gonna be scared if if they beat Vanderbilt by 20 or something.
Yeah. If they beat him at all, I'll be like, oh, okay, that's makes me nervous. All right, man. Well, I think that's it. We'll be back after the next game with another breakdown, man. See you then.
All right.